Just a little recap about yesterday or last night. I think probably the biggest thing that we focus on is that we didn't get the job done. It's a great time to get their attention in terms of the details that we've got to take care of. Obviously, they played very hard with relentless effort. For the most part, tackling was very good. We had a couple of missed tackles that in key situations that we've got to get rectified. I think the biggest thing we've got to do is we've got to take it to the next level. We've got to make sure that we understand the standard is higher than what level we played at, and not so much in terms of effort, not so much of all the things that somebody might look at watching the game and say, but little technical things, technique things in certain situations of hand placement, foot placement, those kind of things. Communication, we've got to keep raising the bar in terms of our communication, and they've bought into that, and so, which they always do. But I think the big storyline for us is, when at the end of the day, and regardless of how it's perceived that you play, good, bad, or indifferent, the reality of it for us as coaches and the players in the room is that this is a long season. It's a process, but it's a process in which we have a standard we're going to play to, and we need to go from good to very good to real good to keep reaching for that standard. And so that's kind of what we've challenged them with. They've responded. Every time we've asked them to do something, they have responded, and this will be no different. That having been said, I think you have to say that they did play very hard, and there was some very productive football played, but we've got a lot of room for improvement.
It looks like Jeff Auburn has really kind of raised the level of his game in both games.
Yeah, well, that's what happens. Jeff has certainly raised his play, but that's what happens, from freshman year, sophomore year to junior year. That's just the matriculation that happens in college football. They're not professionals where they're getting paid, and that's their job. They're still in the developmental stage, and he's now figured it out at a high level, plays with relentless pursuit. He's affecting others on the other side of the line of scrimmage and affecting our players in a positive way.
How would you assess Carlton Davis's performance last night?
It was good. Yeah, he played. Everybody wants to say, well, he had 3 catches on him. Did anybody see the top knocked off the coverage? No. All right. They threw a lot of balls. And I think they caught 2 on him, and he had a PI on 1. But they were contested throws. He was there, and he was contested. And he was fighting. That's a hard position to play, and a very hard position to play. And when you've got a accurate quarterback and good receivers, they're going to catch some. The key to it is, I don't think anybody can say they saw his man wide open. I don't think anybody can say that they saw his guy running down the field uncovered. There wasn't no question who had the coverage, because he was right there.
When they scored their second touchdown, you guys shut them down once again. Just talk a little bit about the adjustments you guys made throughout the game to kind of adjust to what they were doing, because they were throwing a lot of stuff at you.
Well, there was a lot of offense, in terms of what they did. I think probably 2 things, and you mentioned that score after drive. There's 2 things that happen uncharacteristic for us, and we've had, we covered it today again. But you don't let people score at the end of a half and the beginning of a half. You just don't let that happen. And we were pretty stingy most of the night, but it happened in those 2 occasions. We had made some adjustments at halftime. They made some adjustments. They did hit the play. And I think there was a penalty in that drive. I think a penalty and they hit a play. And then we had a little misfit on a counter, and then missed a tackle. And you can't have a misfit and missed tackle on the same play. That's uncharacteristic for us, but that's what happened. And so, really, we just got them over, settled them down, and covered what needed to be covered that what had been changed at halftime from the other team, which was not that much, but there were a few little things.
Just overall with your defensive line, I mean, we all knew Clemson had one of the most experienced offensive lines. How would you grade their entire performance throughout the night?
Well, I think both times we played, it started and ended with the defensive line. Our defensive line, they're a physical group. They're very, very, very well coached. Rodney does a great job of demanding excellence from those guys and setting the standard real high. He's got enough guys that the competitiveness of playing time is a factor. You better do your job because there's somebody right behind you that can do it too. And so that's a positive thing. But there's no doubt about it at this point in time. I don't think anybody would argue with the fact that, how we're built and how we're playing starts and ends with the defensive line. And they're affecting the game.
Does this surprise you at all at how well they've done
No.
consistently?
No, it does not surprise me. We kind of saw it coming in terms of the depth there, the type people they are, the work ethic they have. There's some guys in that group that they love to practice. Well, you don't win games on Saturday. You win games on Sunday through Friday on the practice field. And those guys, there's a group of those guys that they enjoy practice. That's a hard thing to do when you're a lineman because it ain't like they're running around out there catching and throwing. They're in the physical part of it.
Something we don't talk a lot about, but just your safeties coming down in the run game these last 2 weeks that have done very well for you.
Yeah, well, that's the way we're built now. It was a little bit different last night in that we played a little bit more corners rolled up with safety over the top of it than we normally do for obvious reasons. We mixed that in. It was effective. But the base rudiments of the defense is quarters defense, and we're press man out there on the edge, and it allows the safeties to be, run past keyers and be involved in the run game, and both of those guys have done a good job at that.
What did Jeremiah Denson show you? I mean, you obviously have seen him, but he really played well last night.
Well, it did. I don't know if you noticed. We had Jeremiah actually played two positions. The layman probably wouldn't notice it, but he played star and money on third down, played the money position. So he played two positions when we had 6 DBs out there. He's a really, really smart guy, and so he makes sure he kind of quarterbacks things and does a real good job with that, but he's got a good skill set too.
Kevin, you emphasized turnovers in the summer, and
Right.
you got 2 plays last night where your defensive player just took the ball away.
Right.
Are you pleased with what you're seeing on that front?
Well, I mean, yes, we're pleased it happened, and it's kind of, it's contagious. They see what that does and how, when you get a turnover at the 10-yard line, and I think the other one's right at the 50-yard line, and it was both strips. I mean, they just stripped the ball out, pulled it out, and we've emphasized that more than you can imagine, and you keep waiting for it to come, and it's finally come. Now we hope it comes in large bunches because that was, you need that. You need that in this league.
Can you talk about Dontavius Russell this season? Is he developing like you hoped? And Derek Brown moving in full-time to tackle, how's he doing?
Well, Dontavius is a guy that he does his job. He's one of those guys that, at the end of the day, you may look at the stat sheet and he may not be in the top 5 or 6, but then you go in and look at the grade sheet in terms of doing his job continuously play after play, and he's one of those guys that he's very, very consistent in doing his job. Derek has done well moving inside, and so, I mean, he's a big, powerful guy, still young, but he's got the skill set to be special.
You said last week that Nick Coe really affected the line of scrimmage. How did you see it progress from week 1 to week
He looked a little bit more comfortable there. I think probably the biggest thing that was noticeable was the pass rush, but for obvious reasons. I mean, the week before there were very few passes. They were play action passes. You know, I think seeing him rush the passer in a drop back pass game, you can see that he brings something to that.
Kevin, you've done this for 37 years. You've seen it before where if an offense is kind of struggling and defensive players might look at off the offensive players and say, you guys have got to pick it up.
Yeah.
How do you control that possible division among players, and is it something you have to think
Well, you know, first of all, when you look at it from a team thing, you know, coach does a really good job of making sure that, you know, we're all on the same page in that regard. But from the defensive standpoint, and our contribution to that is that we're kind of like first responders. You know, we're trained and built that way. We don't look at the scoreboard. We don't worry about when we play and what time we play and who we're playing. And we've kind of built it that way in that we just have a mindset of, hey, just put the fire out and play as hard as you can, control what you can control, and play the next play. We're built that way. And although, you know, there's emotions involved in games, and obviously when you're not successful, there's frustration. But these guys we've got really good leadership. They're not put together that way. They understand it's a team game, and you know, most of you will know this at any point in time in the year. There's ups and downs for any phase of the game. Any phase of the game, there will be a day when, you know, the offense is lighting up the scoreboard, and you're going to be standing up there and saying, "What happened to the defense?" I mean, that's just the way it is in sports. And so if you build it to make sure that team camaraderie and the understanding of that, you build it before, not when it happens. Those kind of things are talked about in the teaching lessons, spring practice, summer, fall camp, so that when it happens, it's not like, oh, well, how am I supposed to react? They already know how they're supposed to react. Keep fighting and play.
Deshaun Davis doing pretty well. I know he was tweeting out that he feels very, very good, feels fine.
In terms of?
Well, he came off the field in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, well, he was out there today and looked fine. So I don't normally comment on injuries, but I can comment on that because I saw him out there today.
You know anything about Mercer yet? I know it's very.
Yeah, I've for whatever reason I couldn't sleep last night, and so when you can't sleep and you coach, you watch tape, and so I watched tape, graded the film on the way back last night, and then watched some of them on the way back last night, and then obviously got up this morning and started watching them. So I've seen both games this year and 4 games into last year.
What do they do well offensively?
Well, the quarterback is a young guy, but he's an effective thrower. They've got some receivers that can knock the top off the coverage, and he's got the arm to get it to him. I mean, he's an effective passer now. They do run it. They're a little bit multiple in their scheme. Formation-wise, they're a lot like what we just played and our offense formation-wise. But they can throw it around.
You guys good?
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it.